quite a bit. And they would like at some point in time to be working with APAC as a committee to give a report and also to get information about those roads. So I just wanted to get that across to you, to APAC and to the community out there. Thank you.
We appreciate, John, we appreciate input from all residents. So we'll be looking forward to hearing more from the group. And if we need to schedule something offline that's not part of a meeting, so we could hear about it, and then maybe something formal that you need to express at a meeting, there's an invitation to the community for all the planning and development issues we have here in El Dorado Hills. So thanks for bringing that to our attention.
All right, thank you, John. Thank you, APAC.
You're APAC, settle down, settle down. So are there any other hands up? I see no other hands up on our attendee list. Okay. So, and I would remind everybody who's attending virtually that it's a webinar participant. That's essentially voting APAC members. If your microphone's on and you're not addressing us right now, make sure you mute yourself so we don't hear what TV shows are on in the background. So the next item that we come to when we open our meetings is we get an opportunity to hear from District 1 Supervisor Heidel, and he's going to share some updates with us about things that are going on at the county level. And so, Supervisor.
Yeah, I think the microphone's on now. So yeah, good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here and to share some information with you. I'm going to be very brief this evening, but there are a number of things going on that people should be aware of. Number one is a result of the governor's determination that all public meetings need to have people wearing masks if they're present, and other considerations. The Board of Supervisors is now operating with a Zoom-only format. Originally intended to go through January 15th, which is when the governor originally announced it. He's now extended that 30 days with the California Department of Public Health. So I'm fully expecting that we'll stay in that mode until the middle of February we get beyond this. So, and that's a matter of caution. There's two things that are being considered. One is the risk it exposes to our employees. We have employees that have to be in the room as well as the supervisors, and we ask for employees to consider whether or not they want to make presentations in person or do it remotely. A lot of them like to do it in person because it's that, body language interaction that they prefer, but that exposes them and the public then to the transfer of COVID. So that was a serious concern. And the second part of it is if there is disruptive behavior within the boardroom, the Board of Supervisors has really no ability to enforce the wearing of masks. So if people come in and refuse, there's no way other than shutting down the meeting. And again, that's very disruptive. And so we wanted to avoid that thing. Given all the tension and anxiety related to COVID, it just didn't make sense to expose us to even more of that. So along those lines, I will tell you that we've had astronomical records being set at the county in terms of number of confirmed COVID cases by county employees. And that obviously, even if you have not been confirmed as positive, if you are within that contact region of people, then you're quarantined for 5 days. So we had a number of employees that have been quarantined for extended periods. That's continuing. We do have testing at the county, so we have the ability to test on a regular basis. But Building C in particular, which is planning and building and DOT and elections, has had a huge impact with staff just being gone. And some of them are trying to operate from home as best they can, but internet connections are not that great in rural parts of El Dorado County. So again, that's an impediment. So I just ask everybody to be patient with the responses from our county organizations because we're in an extremely abnormal condition. Hopefully we'll recover from that quickly, but there isn't a lot we can do except weather the storm, and hopefully this Omicron variant goes away quickly and we can get back into recovery mode. And we had a little conversation before, so that's related to that. The other thing I want to kind of cover is some things that are going on that we got recent updates from. I know everybody's been asking about Central El Dorado specific plan, and we talked to the planning department, and they are trying to schedule a date for that to get to the planning commission sometime the end of March. I do not have a date for you yet, but once that date is confirmed, my office will distribute that information to all the people that have asked in the past so that they have clear notice of what that timing is. But it is finally coming back into the planning cycle, and so there'll be a lot of, I'm sure, expectations and questions related to that when we get closer to that date. So subject to change, always subject to change, but at least it's in our planning window right now, and that's the important part to convey there. Central El Dorado specific plan. It's a parcel behind Rayleigh's, a 98 acre old golf course, right, plus other areas behind the fire station, the other side of the fire station over here, and the subdivision that's on the other side that was previously approved. So yeah, it's in total, I think it's like 400 acres that are involved.
Oh,
like that.
More than that.
No, it's about 380.
I know I have my numbers backwards in my head.
387.
Great, thank you.
So I rounded to 400. Not too far off, right? So big project, and it will affect a lot of things in El Dorado Hills, including traffic, et cetera, et cetera. So I know there's a lot of interest, and that will be brought back to the public. The Planning Commission meetings, if you're not familiar, is a public hearing process. And so we distribute information early. We encourage anyone who would like to comment in writing if they can't attend in person, but to attend in person if they choose to do that. But basically encouraging people to weigh in on the pros and cons of what they see relative to those project proposals. And then our planning department sifts through all that and draws conclusions. And if you remember the status we got up to, we've gotten all the way up to where the state had changed the CEQA, state law for California Environmental Quality Act, requiring VMT analysis. VMT is vehicle miles traveled, as the new methodology to look at transportation impacts. So they're no longer looking at level of service, which is something many of us were familiar with for many, many years. So we now have this new criteria called vehicle miles traveled that required the proponents to go back and recirculate. So we have a recirculated draft DIR that's coming back. I think it's the second recirculated draft, recirculated draft DIR. But there are some significant transportation changes relative to routings and everything else that will probably come in addition to the VMT. It's also important to note that with the current county general plan, we are required to do level of service analysis on every project independent of CEQA. So we really have two levels of review. One is state compliant. The other is what our county general plan tells us we have to do, which is the old methodology. So both of those will come together at a discussion to make sure that we find mitigation, compliance, ultimately on both sides of it in terms of properly mitigated impacts. And I know John mentioned traffic, and that's always the number one thing that seems to happen when a project is proposed is it's, you know, what's the impact on the roadways. So that's important to note. The other thing I'll just mention quickly is that most of us have seen where the governor's declared a major surplus in the budget. So he's now got a plan as to all the additional monies. I'm told it's like $43 billion. He wants to spend in various things. And a lot of that ends up being an infrastructure improvement. A lot of it ends up being for homeless. There's some stuff in there for affordable housing, I think. So a lot of things that have been on their playlist to try to get out and get things done. You're going to see and hear a lot more of those proposals as time goes on. So I think that's a benefit overall, that we will have some funding to use for some of those purposes. We'll see how that all sorts out, what El Dorado County gets versus other people get, but I think that's important. The last thing along those lines I'll mention is that we also at the board meeting last Tuesday accepted an additional $500,000 of federal money that's administered through the state. It's basically CARES money that's residual and carried over. If the state didn't spend it, they'd have to return it to the federal government. It has to be expended by September. But our department, our organization stepped up and said, yes, we can spend that additional monies, recognizing there's two primary purposes in that, and that is COVID relief. So some of it may go to small businesses or nonprofits or whatever. The other thing we asked and got acknowledgement on is part of that money can be used for Caldor fire victims, which is not really COVID related, but I guess it's infrastructure. So they acknowledged that we could be using money for that. So the board will have to weigh in once that money has been verified, but $500,000 is not chump change these days. So that's a boost as well. And then the last thing I would like to do is introduce Karen Garner. And Karen is our new Director of Planning and Building at the county. Tiffany Schmidt was the previous occupant of that particular position. Tiffany got promoted into the CAO's office. I went through recruitment. Unfortunately, we were able to convince Karen to come join us in El Dorado County for various reasons, and she can share some of that, but I want to welcome her. This is an indication of the staff's commitment to what's going on in our community and trying to better understand, you know, El Dorado Hills in particular, since that's where our major growth has been. So I'd just like to turn the microphone over to Karen to introduce herself briefly, if that's okay.
All right, well, thank you, everybody. I've been here all of 1 week and 3 days now, so I can't say that I'm up to speed quite yet, but I'm getting there as quickly as possible. And certainly, you know, El Dorado Hills and some of these projects and specific plans, that's on the top of my radar. You know, people have already put that in front of me, so I'm starting to dive into that. And as Supervisor Heidel mentioned, I'm going to be available and here, and I'll probably be attending on some of these meetings just to keep up and make sure I'm hearing from the community and that we're taking your concerns into consideration as we look at these plans, and then also to help give you information back to and explain some of the process. Planning in particular is not easy to understand. There's so many layers to it, and state regulations and as was mentioned, our general plan regulations, and having to sift through all that to somehow try and get a project out of the end of doing all that is challenging at best. So, but definitely reach out to me. I'll leave some business cards here so that folks have questions or things in the future, you're welcome to get a hold of me. So I'm thrilled to be here. I think this, I've been a Placer County resident for, 26 years now. I've raised 2 girls that are now off in college. One's at home. She started off during the middle of COVID, came home and is going to Sierra College, but is ready to go back out. So I anticipated that at some point, once I get everybody out of the house, I will probably become an El Dorado County resident. So, but I just love this county. It's beautiful. I've enjoyed visiting for many, many years and look forward to becoming part of it. So thank you.
I'd like to welcome you first. First of all, I'd like to thank you. I welcome you first.
Applause, by the way, Karen. You've done really
well. But it's not often we have the director of planning at our meetings. There's a virtual component now. Always the meetings are recorded. If you have anything that you feel needs to be presented here in El Dorado Hills, you have an open forum. Your staff knows that as well. But I thank you for being here tonight. It's first week in a few days, in kind of odd conditions. So we appreciate you being here, and we look forward to hearing your feedback to the things that we review and present. So. Thank you, and thank you, Supervisor. I'm going to ask if there are any questions for Supervisor Heidel. Let's start in the room if there's any questions. Tim has his hand up, and then we're going to go to our virtual attendees.
2 things, John. Yeah, you indicated that there's going to be a second recirculated environmental impact report based on just the traffic only.
Well, they had to recirculate because of the change in sequence. So that full VMT analysis, that's the focus of it.
Yeah, when will it be out for public review?
Typically, it's 30 days, no less than 2 weeks in advance of when that hearing would be, is when it would be posted. I don't know what the current plan is. I understand the document's ready to go, but the county needs to make sure everything is prepped before they. So I can't give you a specific date.
Again, I think my concern would be the timing of it, because as you know, traffic analysis can get very detailed and complicated. 2 weeks is probably not enough time for the community. APAC, our subcommittee, to review it, figure it out, and then make any comments on it. So usually we ask for 45 days or for 60 days for like a huge, 1,000-page document. But again, just think of that as you go forward. Second, not so much a question, but a comment to you is, I would appreciate if you would, at this meeting or at your community council, when there's an opening on one of the committees appointed by the Board of Supervisors, I know I get all the county stuff and I see that there's openings, but I saw that there's an opening for a District 1 position for the Library Commission.
Yes.
And I think would be very helpful, because most people, I don't think, get all the stuff that John and I get. But if at the community council, when something comes up for your district, if you would just make an announcement, so you'll reach a broader audience than the people who just sort of delve into the policy documents.
Yeah, great idea. And sometimes Cindy will mention those things, but yeah, they pop up infrequently, but I'll try to remind her. she doesn't recall that part of it, I'll try to help her with it, because yeah, it is important to know where there are those kinds of openings. I'll add one more thing based upon that, and that is that we've been notified that we're in the 5-year review cycle now for a charter committee review. So the county charter has to be reviewed every 5 years. The last one was in 2017. We've been getting notice that we need to get prepared to appoint people, and each supervisor gets to appoint a representative and then also an alternate. So that's the way the provision works, but somewhere in the near future here, that information is going to come out, and we will be selecting a District 1 candidate for that charter review. Remembering in the past, the last one we did in 2017, Rachel Michelin was the lead, and Dick Ross was our alternate. And I know Rachel's got very busy with her. We reached out to Dick to see if he's interested. He is interested. So I'll just put that out there. So that's an encouraging thing, because he spent probably 60% of his time in those meetings as a representative, since Rachel wasn't able to attend due to other conflicts. So we've got some history there built into Dick Ross. So we'll see how that all plays out. But yeah, as those openings come up, we'll definitely try to make sure we emphasize in the community council, and then carry it in APAC certainly as well. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to invoke some privilege and cut in line. I don't see any hands up. So if you're on Zoom and you have a question for Supervisor Heidel, go ahead and raise your hand. Let's see, I don't see it. Oh, I got this one here, so you're good.
I have my hand up, John.
Well, now you're gonna have to wait for me, John.
Okay, question to APAC and also to Supervisor Heidel. And now that El Dorado Hills is divided between Supervisor 1 and Supervisor 2, how are we going
and for John, Supervisor District 4 is also part of 95762.
All right, so how are we going to have meetings in the future?
I don't think it affects APAC's reviews, because they are, basically looking at 95762 typically is El Dorado Hills. And well, other supervisors have been encouraged to attend these meetings, to my knowledge. So
are we going to encourage the other supervisors to attend these meetings, and can they attend? Would it influence the Brown Act?
Brown Act would only allow 2, and I would suggest, I think District 4's representation is just a couple of percent.
It is.
So we're really talking District 1 and District 2.
And I've had conversations with supervisors in the past to let them know that they have an extended invitation to attend, that we want to be respectful of the Brown Act. We try ourselves, even though we're not a board appointed committee, we try to adhere to the Brown Act. And I've got some, I'll just say, past supervisors have said that, that they didn't want to complicate it. It is more complicated now, just with where the physical lines are. If a project is in District 2, I don't think there's anything that would prevent a supervisor from hearing or making a comment, as long as you're not opining on how you're going to vote or how you expect others to vote. But I know I think we talked about the community council. I've had people ask that are south of the Highway 50 that are now in District 2. They're asking, well, can we still come to community council meetings? And APAC is a standing subcommittee or a standing committee of the community council. The community council is a District 1 function technically, but you've expressed that anyone in El Dorado Hills is a member of our community councils for you. So
absolutely,
I will extend those invitations to supervisors when there's projects that impact those areas. And I also periodically I'll ask if they have any interest in attending. I know I've talked to Supervisor Parlin probably a year and a half ago, and she's very busy. In District 1, there's a luxury of being very compressed. You can be pretty much anywhere in District 1. District 4 is geographically a challenge. District 2 would probably be that way as well, but keep me on my toes, John. If there's something that we need to include other supervisors, let's make sure we're doing it.
Let me just share that I'm the only supervisor that has this kind of a meeting. All the other supervisors are using newsletters to keep their constituents informed. So if you're not receiving the District 2 newsletter, John, you certainly want to reach out and request that. I presume you probably are, but that's the way their primary method of communication is, as opposed to the community council here. So,
well, this is not the community council, John. This is APAC.
And I understand, but we were talking about the community council discussion, so I understand. APAC, yes.
All right. I have one other concern with so many of county staff out sick with COVID and changes in personnel, can we really do an adequate job of studying all of the different projects that are coming up? Do we have to proceed with all due speed, or can we slow down and wait until we have our staff back again where they should be, where new people who have come in are now trained and know what's going on? Or do we just want to push these things forward to get them finished?
I'm gonna let Karen comment on that. I have an opinion, but she's probably better spoken on it than I am. So
I will say, I know that just the staffing has probably slowed down some timelines already, just because we don't have enough staff. But you know, we're hiring very good staff, and you know, for me too, it's just a matter of diving in and learning the specifics. But we're still I'm have to follow the same rules and regulations and as you know, any other jurisdiction. So there's a lot of familiarity there. So you know, I understand your concerns. I will say that, like I said, I have really good staff. I know that they're very professional, they're very thorough, and things like CEQA force us to be thorough. You know, we have to, when we're doing CEQA, there's a very standardized list that we have to go through, and so I think we're safe there. But if you ask the developers, they'll tell you we're not going fast enough, that you know, the lack of staffing has slowed things down. So we're getting there though. So we'll go as fast as we can, but within reason.
You know, I'm not saying go as fast as you can. I say you should do what you have to do in an appropriate way. And if you don't have the staff to do it, then you should slow down and wait until you have the staff and they train people to do it. That's kind of my point, and I'm concerned about that.
John, the other part of that is we have the ability to bring in consultants, which we've done in the past, and Karen and I had that discussion. You may recall that on the Central El Dorado Hills specific plan, Pat Angel, who was a consultant, led a lot of that. And certainly, you know, his availability will determine whether that makes sense or not in this round. But I know other major developers have been told that we have a pre-approved list of organizations that we could bring in to assist with these things. So it's a function of, is a given developer wanting to go that direction, or are they wanting to go and have the department process that is within the queue that we have to obviously work through. So they have some choices, and I think that's the best balance we've got, but we're not limited strictly by staff, as I'm trying to tell you. We do have the ability to contract with consultants who are well qualified to do the work. And that's the other balancing act we can do in terms of demand versus capacity.
John, who pays for those consultants?
The developer.
How convenient. Thank you, John.
I'd rather have the taxpayers pay for it, John? I wouldn't. But it's run through our planning and building department. It isn't, and again, the credentials of the people that are there are well proven. So whatever.
Okay, so now I'm going to jump in line. Sorry, and there's no more hands up. So, John, this is longer than you wanted to spend tonight. So I was driving Zoom, and so maybe I misheard. So the second recirculated on Central, we saw at the beginning of last year, correct? The Central recirculated draft.
Yes, but this is the VMT addition to it, which...
Do we not have a VMT in there?
No.
There wasn't a VMT because we were still trying to figure out what was the county's policy on VMT, because there were certain criteria we had to establish. And then the developer, and they told us that report has been done for some time, but it's not been shared with the public, to my knowledge.
The VMT data, they had the numbers in the second recirculated, and they had said
the planning commission has not reviewed them, and it was held.
Okay, well, the planning commission hasn't reviewed it. Yeah. But so that was my question. So we had a final before we had the second recirculated. It was obviously it hasn't had.
We didn't have. You don't get a final EIR until you finish all the drafts, right?
That's what I'm saying. A final was issued before we did the second, because we did that before COVID in 2019. We were talking about the final at the meeting at the district church with 500 people there.
Moving towards it, but there wasn't
a
final EIR released.
Was it not released? Boy, my memory's bad. Okay.
That's why we had to go through this second RDR. But anyway, that'll all be explained in the hearing and where we go.
Well, that was my question because I could have sworn we were discussing a final then. And of course, that was 2 years ago.
We're discussing moving towards the final before we recognize we had to go back and do the VMT. And that requires a public hearing.
The final wasn't approved. I understand that. I mean, that's a board action, but I thought it was, the final was released for review. Okay, I'm misremembering this. Yeah. Okay, we've been talking about this too much.
It's only been going on for 5 years.
Well, since 2012, but that's so 10. All right, well, that was my question because I was confused on the sequencing since we did the second recirculated, and I thought we had a final in front of the public to review. That's why we had the comment period. And then,
well, yeah, if we may have had a quote final, but then this new requirement required the traffic only.
There was never an approved final.
Right.
Okay. So it might have been a draft final, whatever you want to call it, but we had to go back and restart that recirculated draft DIR because of the new requirements. And the public hasn't had a chance to understand that or weigh in yet.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. And I'm confused on the VMT too because I had the numbers from Kirk in January last year.
Kirk has his report. It's been ready.
We had it at APAC.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay.
He shared it.
Okay.
He shared
but it hasn't been presented in a public hearing.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
He's done that somewhere outside of what the county.
No. But I mean, we have the documents on the APAC website. Right. So, all right. Well, boy, I'm getting tired of reading. So we'll jump ahead then. I thank you for indulging me with that. So the next item on our agenda tonight, because I see no other hands up, we have the Town and Country Village El Dorado project that we've talked about before. Josh Panay is here tonight. Mr. Mahana is here tonight. You've submitted your plans. You can drive right there if you want to, if it's easier. And then what document would you like me to open up for you?
I think the first one, Tim had suggested doing that starting with the previous document.
About the previous?
So that Tim suggested, let's look at that so we could see what it is and what the board reviewed. We had, just for those who haven't caught up, I hope, I have to hold this, John?
No.
Can you at home hear me all right with my mask on?
Yeah, the nodding, yeah.
I'm Josh Panay with the Mahana family, Muhammad Mahana. The Mahana family have been in El Dorado Hills for 45 years. Just a little refresher for those who don't know. The family has been in hospitality. That's the basis of what they've done. The old Oddfellows Hall in downtown Sacramento on the old Lincoln Highway downtown. Seats from 220 to 2,000 in a variety of events. And the family, the daughters, Nikki and Lily, grew up here in the hills and went to Camarado School. And over the years, as the Mahana family has bought these properties and others, the true passion was about this road that went through them, the old Lincoln Highway, the old wagon train, the old wagon road, the toll road. So we'll pull up, if you could, John, this document. So we worked on for the last 3 years the alignment of Country Club Drive and getting the new country club put in there. And so that's the overall look that hasn't changed. That was the J6 application.
Okay, so you want the old one?
Yeah,
that's easy.
Just this one, John. This I think.
I have it.
Yeah. And so what I'm going to show you is what we had talked to the board about. We worked for about almost 3 years. We had 3 meetings with APAC, the Bridalwood Neighborhood Association we've met with. We continue to meet with folks. We've had a number of planning charrettes at the family ranch. We had our last one in December. The board meeting culminated the pre-application process, the J6 application process. And that's an application process that we enjoyed because it got us to listen to the whole community in a variety of ways. And we heard a lot from John on the APAC board that we wanted to make sure there was a east-west connection for bicyclists, pedestrians. And we heard from members right as late as the Christmas gathering that the north-south connection to get down tier from all the population in the north was important. So we've looked at that and we've integrated many of those pieces that we heard from the community into the J6 application. I think we had a very positive application hearing in front of the Board of Supervisors in mid-October. That was after a couple of years of really intense study. And that was in October, the pre-application, we had looked at from 500 townhomes because we think density of residential will get the expense down on the residential to a point where entry-level families, which we've heard loud and clear. I was talking to Reverend Tom at Episcopal Trinity, at Episcopal Faith Episcopal, and he said, incoming teachers can't afford to live here. So teachers at Camerado and teachers all around, when you come in, you can't afford to live here. So we looked at all of that. We had good conversation with the public, the board. We had good interaction. And also, we had presented to the board this project of 2 hotels at the corner that you see here and a reception facility down at the corner. And let me, if I could just come over there, John.
Sure. And do you want to
just
a laser?
I can point to it as well. And what we found was in the previous, we had this all filled in, this with townhomes, and then this piece, another ownership, we had townhomes in here, and there's an Oak Grove here, and then a little piece over there. Hotels, the 2 hotels here, the Mahana reception wedding facility, and then cottages for the workers of the hotels and the resort. And what we found, that was a big project. The board, a couple of members of the board said, well, it looks like a big project. And we said, it is a big project. So we went back to the drawing board. We think it's all valid and we think it has merit, but we went back to the drawing board and said, what can we accomplish within the next 3 to 5 to 7 years within the infrastructure that we can obtain within 80,000 cars here? What can we do? And we decided that we could accomplish this as a project. 112 cottage units, 450, 500 square feet apiece, something that somebody could live in, a beautiful little casita, and have a beautiful drainage area, which in the winter there's water, in the summer there's no water, but we'd like to explore how we can keep water going. So that if you're a young mother, a young father, you have 1 child, this would be beautiful for you. If you work at the resort, it's a short walk. And daily rentals in the same area, daily rentals for the hotel. So we think each hotel will have 30 to 39 employees roughly. And if we staged 1 hotel and the reception facility as a first piece of this and staged so many of the casitas to coordinate with that, we think that's doable. And we think that we could accomplish that if the board were to say that sounds like a good plan, the planning commission and then the board. How we've structured this is, this area is all in the rural region. And so we've taken this piece and said, okay, that's in the rural region, and we'll apply a rural commercial zoning to that and amend the specific plan. And as we amend the specific plan is 1,400 or no, 1,100 acres and 1,400 home sites in there somewhere. Don't hold me to those exact numbers, but it's 1,100, 1,200 acres, the whole plan. And
That's
so
the Bass Lake specific plan.
the Bass Lake.
The Bass Lake.
Separate from Central or something
It's-
else.
Yeah, that's just the Bass Lake specific plan that was
Bass Lake
put in
Hills, yeah.
Bass Lake Pacific Plan 1995. And so he said, what if we took just 40 of the Mahana acres, this one and this one. This one was cut by the road. And we build cottages on there, daily and monthly rentals. We use this for a field of native grasses and use it for our septic and our leach fields and drain with that and to water a meadow area in here. And we may need 4, 5, 6 acres to do that. And we're studying that. And then use this as our center, our village center. Use this as remainder, except here in 1995, the engineer for the project had engineered all this and thought this would be a fabulous bike trail to get over to here, rather than bringing the bike trail as it exists to here and then doing a bike trail along this 50-mile-an-hour road. And we agree. We think before we do any of this, we could do the bike trail and get that bike trail up this hill, go across the Mahana family property, bring it over here and carry it on. Then we've accomplished something. Whatever the board may do or may not do, whatever the planning commission may do, we've accomplished something and it's good. And that's in the plan. We'd like to also move this concept of a bridge forward as well. We'd like to find an agency, and we think there's plenty of infrastructure money that's going to be out there this year and next year, and for the next 5 years, federal and state, one-time monies, as in the governor has just announced, as John said. And we think a county like ours here has an opportunity to connect. And when you see from Cameron Park to El Dorado Hills, and to connect that pathway east-west. And we've submitted, and we're going to submit more about this as the crossroads of all these paths. And I get excited about this because I'm a historian, Mr. Mahana is a historian, and the history of this, Kathy Prevost has given me some of the history of the inns of Bass Lake Road. There were so many inns along here. So to get excited about that. So if we could find an agency that would be the sponsor, we would pay for the environmental document just on that bridge. And we're readying a bridge consultant and an engineer to study that right now and move that piece forward, move the bike trail forward and continue our program to do this, study it environmentally, and 150 rooms here, 150 rooms here, and the center here. I think we have another couple exhibits if you want to.
Number 2?
Yeah.
Grab it real quick.
And I think, how much time do I have?
As much as you need.
And then
As long as you're going to answer questions.
I'll take questions.
Yeah. So this is
so there's that area there. There's the smaller area. It's about 15, almost 16 total acres on 40 acres that we're focusing the project on. And and I'm having problems to breathe. I haven't presented in a mask in a while. And so what we're looking at is we're thinking, okay, I think, can't you hit one of these buttons on the side, John?
I'm trying to get.
Yeah. Does that do it?
I might have too much open right now. I have the one that was sent over earlier too. So let me close that.
So I'll show you the casita area up above the drainage, and then we'll show you the hotel, the line drawing on the hotel. We have one hotel that's very interested, one hotelier. We still have very good interest from Roger Hume. Roger is the creator, architect, builder, developer of La Borgata. Does anyone know where La Borgata is? The little retail center down, yeah, right next to Rayleigh's. Roger is very interested. We're still in talks with Roger about developing one of the hotels, if not both of them. And his quality, so this is the Bass Lake Road, Highway 50 here. The exit is right here. You get off, come in, and then there's another road up off of Country Club that would come down and around here. So you'd have two access points. This is the West Hotel, the East Hotel. This is the grove of oaks. So we, according to the ordinance, we stand back. Fortunately, the grove is on a knoll of about 20, Dave, what is it, 27, 28 feet, Mohana? Up, huh?
14 feet average, you know.
From down below?
No, from the below, you're like 28 feet.
28 feet. From down below here to up to this level is about 28 feet, all the way around it, except on this side. So ideally, it's positioned to without much cut and fill, to place these two buildings on both sides of the grove and have a beautiful oak grove. And if you haven't been there, call me. There are rocks jetting out of the oak grove, and for the planning department, they've asked us to do rock croppings where it is on the whole property, and we've done that. We're submitting that. But when you see these rock croppings, you think, where am I? And so it's a beautiful grove here, treating the interior with the proper materials. And then you would come in the porte cochere on that lower level. And then this would be shops and wine tasting along both of these different types of retail for the overall neighborhood for Bass Lake Hills and the other neighborhoods, Serrano and Cameron Park and the other part of the hills in here. And then you would go up to this level into the grove on each of the directions. You would naturally go right upstairs and elevators, and then you would be at the Elk Grove level. And then that's the entry into this beautiful reception facility on that first level, and it walks right into the grove. The doors open up into the grove. The hotels look into the grove and look out east and west as well. We've started kind of designing some of this in kind of a green texture. Mohana, what do you call it?
Green hard surface.
Green hard surface. So we mix greenery in with the hardscape. So it's a parking emergency access point. We were talking to the fire department about getting emergency access in here. We've just started designing some of this. So this is 4 stories of hotel above that retail level, and the porte cochere 4 stories on that side. It doesn't quite, the grove peaks above it some many feet. So you'll see the grove above the rooftops. And then this is 3 stories and the restaurants down on both sides here, walking into the Oak Grove on the 2nd floor where you have weddings or events, family gatherings, life celebrations. And then the 3rd floor of this building, Mohana family has had this idea of a museum, but kind of a public space that wine growers could be in, as the Association of Wine Growers. We've talked to them, Apple Hill growers. We've talked about forestry as well, because forestry has been such a predominant piece of the county as well. And what is the future and what has been the past of forestry? Those types of things, and enhance this old wagon trail all the way down and around. This is a natural flow, and we're still working out the environmental piece of putting a pond nearby areas that are already what they call a seep. There's a seep down there, and then preserving the seep, but then putting our own water feature around it to circulate the runoff into a water feature that goes all the way up and circulate that runoff water and clean it off of our surface, so not draining in. If we go to the next one, and I can go back to that, but just let me finish with the casitas up above. We've designed about 112, but I think only 88 are showing. I'm not sure how our calculations got off that many, but we think we could get 112. We finally counted them, so we don't have 112, and one version had 112, but if you count them all, they're not all there. We've started, CTA started with 3 access points, and we're talking to fire about emergency access. We've asked fire to evaluate from their station here an emergency access immediately here. We've talked to fire about doing this one as just emergency access. This is partly daily rentals, partly monthly rentals. So staff, 2/3 of it's going to be for staff. And this is going to be their community. We may have 3 villages within the whole village and a character of each of the villages. These are small, these are 500 feet. So these are small studio type units and casitas for the daily rentals. The Mahana family just finished their first project, 11 stories, all efficiency units in downtown Sacramento, 19J, you can look it up. The smallest is 277 feet, Murphy beds. And so these won't be that small, but they'll be bigger than the larger units down there. They have 350, 325, and 450 foot units. The smallest units went the fastest. The family kept them under $1,000 a month, and they all vanished, 26 out of the 175, because people wanted that. People who have to work, young teachers, entry-level folks. So we think the same can be applied here. And we're hoping, we don't know what traffic, what DOT will say. We're hoping to have 1 entry, emergency entry, and emergency entry there. Then we'll have a gate on the single entry, and it'll be a gated community, and it'll be a beautiful area in the oak, you know, keeping proper distance in the oak. And if you're, you know, someone who works at the hotel, you have a child, you know, we're looking at lofts in these as well, so that you might have 500 feet, but you may have another 150 or 200 feet in a loft area. We're looking at all of those aspects. And it's very exciting. This particular doesn't have the fire hydrants on it yet, but we're going to put the fire hydrants on next. So that gives you, maybe we'll go back to that other one, or well, let's maybe hold there and then see if any questions.
Let me go ahead and stop the share on this so that
yes, Charles.
Just for my, make sure I understand, all of what you're putting up there is between Highway 50 and Serrano Parkway. Would that be true?
Yes. The Safeway is up here. Yeah. Serrano Parkway up there.
Everything is below the Safeway.
This is way down at the very front of. I'm sorry.
It's basically south of Hollow Oak, the road that goes up where the fire station 886 is at. South of there, and just frontage along the north side of the New Country Club Road, and then south to basically the highway. I mean, it's the old Country Club Road.
Yeah, I think in there somewhere we have a location map, but
in the map, I'll.
Yeah, we have a location map, Highway 50, and so the Parkway is up here, and we're way down on this, right at the heart of it. Yeah. So,
John.
Mr.
I have a question. I have a question.
Okay, John, go ahead.
The cottages, are you going to form some kind of a real estate corporation to run the cottages, to rent them and to police them and to repair them?
Yeah, the Mahana family has a management, rental management company, Western Management. How many units do you all manage, Mr. Mahana?
500,000 square feet, maybe 400 units. Yeah.
So 400 units they manage, 500,000 square feet of commercial they've managed for 30, 25 years or
40 years. Yeah.
40 years. So the intent is to keep that one unit. Our idea is that we have a central gated entry, and we haven't confirmed this with our one hotel yet, but we're hopeful that they'll take a number of those cottages because that will help us balance out the cost of the affordability on the staff side with daily rentals of a hotel. But nonetheless, if we're committed, if the hotel takes 10 or they take 20, because we think it's the right thing to do. Downtown, the Mahana family did those units, and when others were coming on the market for that size unit for $1,400, $1,500, $1,600 a month, they had committed they were going to keep it under $1,000 so that somebody who needed a place for $1,000, and you have to come down and take a view of that property. There's a rooftop looking west, a rooftop looking east. It's a beautiful co-work space that the people have. It's gorgeous. So please come down and see that.
This is the vicinity map that we threw up here on top.
Yeah.
Where it says the project site at the bottom, that's obviously right next to the highway, and then the yellow line runs to the north side of it. For the word specific is the new Country Club Drive.
Yeah.
Does that kind of make sense?
That's exactly it. And if you look on our previous plan, the J6, this was included, and this I think it was included all the way over to here. And we don't want to lose sight of the Asha 20 acres up there. We're still talking to the neighbors up there. There were neighbors who said, well, we're not quite sure what you're doing, if we could do this, this, and this. So we're reevaluating that 20 acres. We would probably bring that to the board or to the planning commission, back to the planning department in a number of months and get that application going. We've scheduled to talk to the area agency on aging, the commission on aging. They are looking for senior affordable units. I had made an appointment with 3 of the members, and the snow came, and so, but we'll get there. And we're looking, could we do affordable senior units in the Oak Grove up there in areas, and then market rate senior, a complex of market rate. And we think we could successfully do that as well. One of the neighbors, we have Gene Wyckoff, the Encates, Dr. Morehouse, and then we have the church. We've talked to Father Larry up at Holy Trinity. We've met with one of their board members, Ken, and he came to one of our charrettes. We have the Parks District up there on the other side, so we've talked to them. Kevin, the general manager, and members came out and trying to figure out all the pieces up on that 20 acres, but we think we could successfully do something and bring something back since this is, thank you, John. This is the Asha group here, this piece. This is that remainder 20 acres of the Mahanas, and then this 40 acres here. You can see the old trail right there. There's a fabulous rock cropping there with, it almost looks like a fresh water well. And it goes dry in the summer, but it's a beautiful piece. And we've started talking about along the old trail. This is where the bike trail would come up here, go in here, around that oak, that big oak in the center, come back down here. We've been talking about the potential, and we can't figure out whether this is on the Mahana family or it's on the Asha, whichever one, doing some beautiful natural things all around that rock outcropping. See if it's a live spring or see if it's a dormant spring in the summer. You know, so often it goes down. So watch it and really do some things. This is the, you can, in this view, you can see the old Lincoln Highway that went through Clarksville here. You know, in the 50s, they cut it off, chopped there. And this is part of the old Lincoln Highway. The Mahana Ranch is over here that the Mahanas bought 38, 40 years ago as they lived up here looking down. And then there's a beautiful old wagon trail right along this drainage area that comes, Carson Creek comes down like this. And this is a beautiful old wagon trail that used to go, see if I get this, right across and like that. And in another map, you could see it pretty clearly. And so we've talked to the American River Conservancy. We've had them down there talking about the Mahana Ranch and what they might like to do. We've had the Community Service District. So that's.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Holy Trinity School is supposed to have a some kind of a ball field or a soccer field that the land was supposed to be donated to them by the builders of the new housing that's there. Where are your cottages in relation to that ball field? It's supposed to be on the other side of Tierra de Dios.
Yeah, this is the casita, the cottage area right here, and this is the. You see some rocks, and they're piling dirt up here, and this is the drainage area that comes down here, goes into the drainage. Drainage from up here all collects here, and right here, John, is that right across from the school. And I talked to George Carpenter about that with Tom Wynn, and he says they're just getting ready to figure out how to give that to the church. We've talked to the Father Larry Beck and Ken over there, and then the Parks District as well, because the Parks District has this piece right in here. And if you ever want to see a cool thing, the old trail, this old trail used to go right here, and you can see a little loop that Mahana had showed me years ago and said, this is part of the old trail. It's fabulous. But the Parks District has that piece. So we're talking to all those parties up there trying to decide, okay, what really works best in this area? Country Club has cut off the Asha group's parcel here, and they still have this piece remaining. The Encate family owns this, and then Gene Wyckoff is here. So we want to be respectful and try to figure out what we can do. We had, in the J6 app, we had put a mixed use here. The Encate said, no, that's a little too intense for us on our side of the road. What you're doing on that side is great, but this side, we need to do something else. So we're kind of going back to the drawing board and seeing what else could be possible on that Asha group that way and there, and talk to all the parties up there. But that's the piece that they're designating. George and Tom have designated for the school and the church.
Okay. Another question: with your hotels, what are you doing for parking? Are you going to have parking within the buildings, or outside the buildings?
The previous exhibit we had shown, and I think you'll see. Oh, not this one. I think that other one. We have
Probably that one's going to take a minute to
I
load.
think our architects, what we came up with was a 400 and some parking spaces, which meets the requirement of the county planning. Yeah, I think it's showing, here's our parking, 464, we provide 440 are required. We'd like to talk about, besides that, we think the connectivity here, ultimately, if that could happen, there's 100 car spot over here that park and ride. We've met with the transit department, transit authority, and they've shown us their plans. In the specific plan, it calls for another 200, another 100. And we'd like to talk about helping them with that and cross using those parking events. And then the church, I've talked to Father Larry, I've talked to Reverend Tom, I've talked to Pastor Brian on the Foothill Community Church down the way. They're all within a shuttleable area. So if there are weddings or family gatherings there and you're not staying at the hotel, then shuttle you, leave your car once, don't move. You've made one trip, and we save a trip on VMT because you're not moving all those cars back to the reception or at the reception place. If you're staying at the hotels, you park your car once, and we shuttle you on some type of conveyance, hydrogen or electric or some low carbon conveyance to these churches. There's actually 4 along this area within a mile and a half. So we think we have the components with this parking field, but those, I was just talking to Reverend Tom the other day up at Faith, and he said, yeah, my parking lot is empty most of the time. And so, so yeah, there's a lot of infrastructure already out there. If we could utilize that infrastructure without impacting neighbors, but just utilize it, that would be a very good thing. Ultimately, the Mahana family is about hospitality, and that hospitality center will be the hub of what we consider the Bass Lake Hills. It'll be the center, it'll be the village center. And recreationally, from hiking trails into the 1,000 acres that's in the Serrano area, all of those acres in there that Don on the board over there has talked to me about Don Saka, to get people, and as Rafael Martinez said, that could be a nice 1.5 mile, 2 mile round trip, bike trip off-road for families. All of those types of things, all the way to the road bicyclist coming from far or the mountain bicyclist that we're having conversation with, all of those things, that could be a recreational piece right here. And then going to the wine country. We think this will be the first 2- and 3-night stay location for the wine country. And for the whole county. I didn't realize until I was reminded that those bigger places are mostly in Nevada up at Lake Tahoe and aren't on the California, but there are some on the California side. Isn't that Marriott on the California side, or?
Timber Lodge is on the California.
On the California side. But so on the West Slope, this will be the first intentionally planned resort location for recreational, local, and the 80,000 cars a day tourism. Yeah.
So Tim, you had a question, but I'd like to go to the room and then we'll go to virtual. So if you want.
Yeah, this seems, the last time you guys were here, you spoke about a 20-year plan, which included 900 apartment buildings or
350 apartment, 500 townhomes.
So,
yeah, that's what
are you planning to get those sort of pre-approved with this application?
No,
Now, are you just
no.
going to focus on
Just
the
this.
cottages and the hotel and retail side.
We made a decision that this is the project. And whether any of that ever comes, we think the Bass Lake Hills, as soon as sewer and water is able to be conveyed here, and we'll help with that, the rest of the existing plan can build out, or if there's other pieces that in the wisdom of the Planning Commission and the board thinks that should happen, if they think density should happen. And remember, past Country Club is all community region. So the board could have a simple amendment to the plan if they think more density should be there for townhomes. And we think a lot of people in Serrano and Cameron Park want to move down to smaller places from 4,000, 5,000 foot places there. We have a lot of people want a 1,200 foot place. And we think that entry-level families and entry-level couples and entry-level singles are critical. So that's going to take some density, but that's a decision of the Board of Supervisors and the Planning Commission. And we think there's plenty of land for them to make those decisions, but we don't have to do it now. And it may be, you know, that area that we looked at for townhomes, or the remainder 20 acres of the Mahana, it may be that we see this so successful and this becomes such a place of enjoyment for Serrano, the Hills, Cameron Park as the centerpiece as the roads cross here. We may see is something else recreational of more value here for the whole population. So, yeah, you might say we're giving up 500 townhomes and 300 apartments. We don't see it that way. We see it, well, let's see if we can accomplish this and this to begin with, and casitas for those. And then, you know, maybe we can look at it and, okay, maybe this works next. We do that as the second phase of this project, maybe build out the rest of the casitas, and then sit back and say, okay, is there anything else? Now we have a beautiful, close proximity. It really is, I think, as we studied Placerville and we read the general plan, if you study how, well, we used a piece of it in our application. From the general plan, it says, the way the county grew was, there was something happening, well, gold, and then timber, and then other industries grew out of it. And these small rural communities grew. But it was on a purpose, and housing came with the purpose. And the same thing, we're thinking, well, let's do it that way then. Let's grow like that.
What I like what you're doing, this is one of the, I can't actually think of another plan that we've reviewed over the years where as part of your hotel retail complex, and an integral part of the project is that you are providing affordable workplace housing for workers who will work in those businesses. So I think that's complimentary to you and the Mahana family for providing that as part of the plan.
Well, we appreciate that. And it's selfish, really. If you really look at it, do you want employees at this resort coming from Rancho Cordova, or coming from and flooding up the highway in 100-degree heat and trying to get to work on time, and all of those things? I mean, but it does, I appreciate the compliment, because Mr. Mahana has had this vision and has talked to me about it for 30 years of these small and smart, affordable by design. And I've told him over there, well, what exactly does that mean? Well, you can see them around, Josh. You see them. I personally built a couple of these little things, one 624 feet, one 350 feet on my two little properties that I have in my home, and a rental that I have. And I said, that's smart and small, and it's affordable. So What other questions? But thank you for that. Thank you.
So let's go around the room. If you could, is there a microphone near you? Press the button until it turns green so the people online can hear you.
Yeah, I'm curious as to who is the hotel customer.
You know,
And why are hotels so close to Sacramento? And who's gonna drive into there to stay? And why would they want to stay there versus somewhere else, Sacramento versus Lake Tahoe?
you know, over the years, I've been going around California for my work, and I always think, here I'm driving down the Interstate 10 in Ontario, and this group I'm representing has a meeting there, and there's a 150, 200 room hotel, and I go in and I'm thinking, well, who's staying here? It's right next to a Highway 10. This is 80,000 cars a day going by. So it's either we capture them here and they come in and they get to go to wine country for 2 nights or 3 nights.
When you say wine country, where are you referring to?
The 72 wineries in El Dorado County.
Okay, so primarily.
Yeah, we've had conversations with the wine folks, but some think that Fair Play will get South County will get a better gateway from this complex, but we think that the Placerville we think the Placerville folks will get a real boost as well. But we think there's a potential of skiers, that there are no hotels up in the ski resorts right here. And we think that you might see skiers get off of that road and say, we want to stay right here. We think that the weddings, the family gatherings, the life celebrations, Father Larry was telling me sometimes they'll have, on the big ones, 900 people for a life celebration. And usually they'll go and have a reception somewhere. Their facility, when school's in, their gym doesn't take it. So we think all of those right here are all ready for a facility of this size. We think that Serrano, the rest of the hills, and Cameron Park are prime customers because there's no hotels along here in any of this area. We have a chart that shows all the hotels on the Sacramento side, and then we have a couple of hotels on our El Dorado side, town center on that side, but it's not on this side. And people go to the Holiday Inn Express is very well populated, and they've done a lot of business. But we know from hoteliers, Hyatt and Hilton, both 2 different brands, they both want to be here. They both have said, oh yeah, tell us what can we do to help. So they know from their own marketing that this is a good location. Yeah.
I think that was one of the first questions I think we asked. We can do another hotel because the Holiday Inn has been very successful. They sold it a couple years ago. It's very profitable. And now they're starting construction on the Aloft by Marriott behind them, Regal Cinema, and next to the Mercedes dealership. The El Dorado de Montana Phase 2, they have a 99-room hotel in that project that's been approved. The EDH 52 originally had talked about another hotel. They talked about a hotel in Town Center West. So clearly there's an interest. So that's what our first question was, well, I'll talk about hotels. Is there enough customers for this? And for what we're hearing from people uphill in Placerville that don't have those amenities, that they think it makes sense. And obviously your consultants are telling you the same thing.
Yeah.
But it's a pointed question. I think that's one of the first things a lot of people ask.
You started titling this as an event center, and I think that's an important feature as opposed to just a hotel, right?
Yeah, I mean,
you've got the scenario, the landscape, the features, and that sort of thing that really make it a draw for events, weddings, receptions, life events.
Yeah.
It's not just a hotel you come stay at to go skiing. It's a combination of things.
And so all of these sectors is what we're talking about. All of these different sectors of the marketplace. But my gut says all of Serrano, all of Cameron Park, the rest of the hills, even folks on the south side and all of this area will all be attracted here. The bicyclists that want to come up from Folsom and find their way. And you might think, well, how many bicyclists could do this? It's just, I'm a bicyclist, so I'm biased, but yeah, bicyclists coming up 32 miles on the American River Trail, get to Cairns, and that's a stop. And then, but there's a whole host of bicyclists. We've hosted a bicyclist group from Folsom that has membership in El Dorado Hills and Folsom. And I was saying, well, this will be Cairns. We'll have a place like Cairns and Folsom right here. And then someone said, well, where's the brew pub, right? And then where's the wine tasting? And those are all possible. And we just have to, we got to take a step at a time. But I think we'll be shocked how much business for these hotels come right out of these hills.
Yeah, and I wouldn't have guessed it. So your research is
it just, as I go around the state and I see where these hotels are, it's a moment in our history of a transitory population as well. And I can't describe what that means other than a lot of people are moving around and they're freed up. The internet has freed people up and they're working from home, which when I sat on the Sacramento City Council 30 years ago, we did these, well, we're going to have in El Dorado Hills, we'll have a work center. And then in Loomis, we'll have another work center and people will go there to work and not come all the way downtown. And I thought, oh, that'll never work. Well, forget those, they're staying at home. And there are co-work spaces that are happening, but it's happening and people are moving and going around and taking meetings in the Oak Grove.
Other questions in the room? Pretty shy. So I'd like to turn it over to anybody who's online via Zoom. If you want to press the raise hand button. I got one coming up and I'm going to go ahead and push that real quick. Mike, could you go ahead and see? There you go. Have at it, Mike.
Hi. I have one question. Are your temporary and permanent guests going to bring their own water? As you know, there's a water shortage around here. Where in the hell is it coming from?
Thank you, Mike. We've been working with EID to understand their water capacity and our water needs. Our engineer has been working with them. And it seems that they have the water capacity and can deliver us the water. We've been with other neighbors on the other side of the freeway who don't get water because their wells run dry come June 15th. They're looking at how they can get water. And EID has told them and told us that there's plenty of capacity that EID holds right now, both from the Jenkinson Reservoir coming down and from Folsom. And they don't use Folsom now, but they want us to go through the reclamation district and get that done so that if they ever need Folsom water, they can have it immediately. So well, EID, and they've shown us the studies and what they've done and how much capacity they have.
Well, as you know, there are liars, damn liars, and statisticians. But if they have plenty of water, why are we being asked to cut back on our landscape water, letting our yards die? So well, there isn't enough water, and I don't go along with that. I'm sorry. My second question is your project going to pay for the road work that needs to be done to handle the capacity of traffic?
Yes. Well, let me just go back to that previous one for a moment. In the city of Sacramento, they have more water rights than any other city in Northern California. I've studied it the former city manager got the rights in the 50s. And they have told people not to water their lawns because it's the concept of conservation. And Mr. Mahana has built that concept into this. And I could go through the details with you on that, but there are elements in our plan that go to conservation. So we're going to be conserving as much. We're not going to be asking EID for recycled water from their recycle plant. We're going to be recycling our own water. But on to your second question, this idea of roadways. We're going to do a traffic study, and we mentioned this to the board, but I'll mention it again here. When I was on the city council 28 years ago, I decided I was not going to vote for a project unless all the infrastructure was done and in by the time you open the door. That seems like a sensible plan, because if you're on the development side or the family that owns this, you want to see it go smoothly. If you're on the public side, you want to see it go smoothly. If you're on the elected side, you want to see it go smoothly. I lived on a street called Elvis Avenue growing up, 66 feet wide. My dad said, oh, someday there's going to be a lot of traffic here. It was one piece of a bypass that was never built. And still to this day, my brother has the house, and there's just a few cars that go down this 66-foot wide lane. But my dad didn't go there and buy it and say, okay, now I'm going to try to stop them from building this. No, he said, just remember this. When I got on council, I said, I'm not voting for anything unless we do it. The Mahanas have committed to that for this project. But I think we should encourage the county and the DOT to look at the rest of the two other lanes that are going to have to go on both sides of Bass Lake up to Safeway, and look in the whole of the specific plan, because for good or for bad, all of Serrano comes down Bass Lake on that back side. And they have a way down here, but this is a big way down for Serrano. So we should make it as smooth sailing as possible. And I'm going to propose to DOT and the board that we figure out that next chunk beyond the Mahana property up to Safeway and figure out, okay, how can we put 2 more lanes on both sides and do it within a time frame in the financing plan of the specific plan, so that we get it done in anticipation of other development coming to fill out the specific plan. So do our traffic analysis, do the work we need to do on down by the interchange, the 4 lanes, the 2 other lanes going up to the property, but look ahead and say, how can we help finance that next piece from the top edge where you saw the casitas to the Safeway, because we know that will be beneficial for everyone. Now, the county has many priorities, so we'll have to help them understand that this is a big priority, because it will make it all very smooth. And ultimately, over 20, 30 years, these other properties will fill out and will develop according to the plan or according to additional plans that come along that are more reasonable for 2022 to 2030, because you've got to have density by a freeway on-ramp. You don't want your density 10 miles off and clog it all up all the way down the 10 miles. You want it right on where 80,000 cars are going by. So that's, but we've committed to that. We committed to the board, and there was 3 comments. There were many comments, very positive at the board. 3 were, one was, he didn't think that we could build within the topography of how it lays out. And we're showing you we can. And second, he said, but if you do this, make sure you do your infrastructure of your roadway first, so there's no backups. And we committed that to the board in the pre-application, and we committed to you right here, Mike.
Thank you for those questions. And I would also point out that next month, we're going to have Rafael Martinez here to make a presentation about traffic issues in El Dorado Hills, sort of the circulation plan going forward. So Josh, if you want to call in, please do. But yeah, it's something that I'm a Bass Lake resident. I've been talking about for 20 plus years. So we're eager to hear how it can be accomplished and how projects can facilitate it. So thank you for that answer. Is there anybody else online that would like to ask a question? Raise hand button if you could. Wow, Josh, you might have answered everybody's question.
Well, I want to give a shout out to Kathy because she has helped me with my calls to her, pestering her. But when I read in the bulletin, she gave us one of them, I think it was last year, the inns of Bass Lake.
Yeah.
And there's a whole historical piece on the inns because Mahana is an innkeeper, basically, hospitality. And from Mormon Tavern to up Bass Lake, there are all these inns, all these stopping places, all these around all the hills. And she calls it, I think she called them the inns of Bass Lake. And so I wanted to say thank you for all of that.
And Kathy is on, so she can hear us. And I'm the editor of the Bass Lake Bulletin, so I see those before you do. So yeah, she puts a lot of work into researching, and a lot of our Bass Lake Action Committee members are very interested. Clarksville Region Historic Society, very keen in the history of the area. So appreciate that.
The Mahana family has worked on that with Betty January and Doug, and so we really appreciate all that.
So if there are no more questions, if there's anything else you'd like to wrap up with?
Just finally, you'll see online, we're going to submit additional backup exhibits. And one of the technical advisory pieces from the DOT was give us a real sense of these connectivities you're talking about and what it connects to outside your project. So we've given 5 exhibits that we've worked. Chris Payne had told me about the connectivity of the Parks and Rec bike trails. The Community Service District has told me about theirs. The Transportation Commission has theirs. And I think Jeff Barker showed me one. This is and this is in our packet that we're submitting to enhance our application. This is from the Bay to Tahoe. Bill Parker had told me about this vision he had of a 200-mile round trip trail. And so I'm still talking to him about where is it? And it goes from one end of Greenhaven and Sacramento, comes up, winds up here, goes all the way to Placerville, and comes back down. And this is from the Bay to Tahoe. It was evaluated in 2004, and we include it because the crossroads is right in Bass Lake Road. This is one of the crossroads. And so take a look at that when we submit it. It'll be online on the county site. And we're very excited to submit that, plus the specific, and then we have a larger one that goes from Sacramento all the way up to El Dorado Hills, Shingle Springs, and up to Placerville. So we're looking at all those connectivity pieces, but we appreciate your time. We'll be back next month to listen to the DOT director and look forward to, working on it and seeing how we can do the very best possible for the West Slope and the hills.
We appreciate you taking time to come tonight, and we're glad to see the applications in so we can review it. The materials that are submitted on Track It, we have posted on the APAC website, so it's a little easier to find. If you do go to look on Track It, I got to remind everybody you have to have a free user account, and you can actually click through to the attached documents. But we do have them on the APAC website. And when new documents are added, we'll incorporate those as well. So thank you for being here tonight. We appreciate your time and answering our questions. And I'm sure there'll be more.
Yeah, and call me, my number, my email's online on these applications, and just call me if anyone has any questions. Thank you.
Well, thank you. So we have one little items that we'd like to wrap up tonight, and so that we can get people home. Our subcommittees, we form subcommittees of community residents to review projects as they're presented, and we do some analysis. None of us are experts. Actually, we have a couple, but okay. So I'm not an expert, but it's a lot of work. It's a lot of reading. But when we have many members of the community working on small sections, like I always seem to get stuck with traffic, but we're talking about environmental, water, as Mike mentioned on his call, air, noise, anything that can be reviewed, and just sort of like the impacts of the benefits to El Dorado Hills as we look at projects. So our subcommittees do a lot of heavy lifting, and we know in the coming year we have several things that we're probably going to be seeing more of. And as Supervisor Heidel mentioned tonight, the Central El Dorado Hills Specific Plan will be coming back. We have our subcommittee. We met with a community member who's a former developer. He's in the development industry, and he's taken another look at the Central Plan, and he had some concerns. A lot of his findings that he did on his own, and we have pages and pages of spreadsheets and documents from him. He's done a lot of effort, a lot of work. They support sort of the findings we presented back in January 2019, in that time frame, before everything went sideways and the project sort of stopped in terms of the review process. But and then he has some other elements that maybe we didn't consider or we didn't have the same eye for. So we have the benefit of having him work with us, and we're hoping to have to wrap up his sort of review and incorporate it into our subcommittee review to bolster what we've already submitted. But when we look at projects like this, it's a lot to look at. There's thousands of pages of documents on a big project like Central. Some of these other ones coming up, Creekside Village Specific Plan, and we've heard from the applicants for that. And that's being modified right now as they peeled off about 50 acres for the Community Services District. So their plan is changing. It's out for a draft environmental impact report right now. And when that comes back through, we're gonna have to start working. It'll be a lot of reading. We have so many days to respond with public comments before it goes back in, and they analyze the comments and everyone provides answers. We have EDH 52 in Costco, and they were here just a few months ago. We anticipate that's a summer thing, but that could be a moving target, earlier or later. I imagine probably later. The Town and Country Village, El Dorado, we looked at tonight. We've had a lot of benefit of having an applicant who wants to share the information and is a very good advocate for their project, and they want to hear the community feedback. So we benefited from that. So we're going to have a group that needs to work on that. The Carson Creek Village Specific Plan, haven't heard much about that since they made their J6 presentation last year, a little longer than that. And of course, the Bass Lake Regional Park, the CSD is working on right now. They're getting their environmental documents lined up. So these are all things that are sort of somewhat imminent. There are other projects that we've talked about in the past, whether it's Marble Valley Specific Plan, Lime Rock Valley Specific Plan. So these are all things that we need help working on. We have about 15 voting members right now, 14? Yeah. 14. So the way you become a voting member on these projects is you donate your time and work on it. It could be the smallest thing. You might have an interest in like the bike trails like Josh was talking about tonight, the bike paths, the pedestrian elements. You might have interest about the aesthetics of a project. We want that help. So if you're in the community and you want to help, we want you to reach out. Our emails are at the top of our agenda. We have our email address on our website. It's info@edhapac.org. But many hands make lighter lifting. So we would appreciate that.
John, I think one of the things to remember is it's only when a draft environmental impact report is issued that we have a time deadline. Oftentimes 30 or 45 days, depending on the length of it, we ask for a 15 or 30-day extension, which the county has, and the developer behind the project is usually graciously given. But you can, if you're interested in any of these projects that John has just mentioned, you can go to our website, look under the project name, and you can look at what's the documents that the applicant has put into the county. So you can get yourself familiar with it. So when the project does come and we have a time deadline to give written responses, you don't have to start afresh. You can look at the application that the Mahana family has put in for this project and get yourself familiar with it, start asking questions, And then when the draft environmental impact report is out, you can see if those questions were answered to your satisfaction or whether you need further questions that you want to write in and make a comment on.
Yeah. And also to that point, on the draft environmental impact reports, when we're looking at EIRs, the public comments are supposed to be focused on the environmental questions, the elements of CEQA and, the impacts in the community in terms of the environmental aspects. But we tend to, a lot of people just will ask any question. And they do answer all questions. You might not like the answer. The answer might be, it's not an environmental concern, but thank you for your question. But there's an opportunity when there are scoping meetings. We've had them virtually the last few times, but there's an opportunity to engage with the applicants, to engage with county staff, to engage with the consultants the county hires. There are dumb questions, but ask them because, I know the saying is there are no dumb questions, but
don't get discouraged. I mean, yeah, I think some people think that the scales are weighed in favor of the developers and stuff like that. In my 7 years of looking at stuff, I do believe community input can make a difference. County planners, they will take your phone calls or answer your email to the best of their ability to do so. And I do think that if the community has a collective response, changes can be made in either at the Planning Commission or at the Board of Supervisors when a project is considered.
Yeah, and that's what, I think I've said it before, do many meetings, is that, we're not looking to stop or a project or to, get a project over the finish line. We're just looking for the best project. We're an advisory committee and we're looking to provide that community feedback to the process. And if there's no feedback, then maybe your concern doesn't get heard. So we encourage everyone, we'll help you. It's not a matter of us knowing exactly how to do it, but we've done a few of them. So we have some experience and we have the benefit of a lot of curious people. So with that, I would remind everyone that our next meeting, and if I can move ahead here. I also want to remind everyone, this year we're taking public comments in advance of our meeting. So if you have something that you can't be at the meeting, you can't participate via Zoom, or if you think there's a question that maybe might require some research from either APAC members or the applicant or a guest, if you submit them in advance, if we get them emailed in by 5 p.m. the Monday before our Wednesday meeting, we'll share them with either an applicant, county staff, or with the guest and try to have an answer so that they're not struggling to tell you, oh, y'all have to get back to you on that. So, but the questions need to be related to the agenda items. So, and so our next meeting is February 9th. It's a Wednesday, 6:30 p.m. It's our new start time. In this current environment, we don't know if we're going to have a facility to be in. If the disease spread is still bad, we might get an edict that we need to meet virtually, which we will do. The meeting will also be, regardless if it's in person or it has to be entirely virtual, we'll have recordings, we'll have the virtual meeting available for everyone to attend. So with that, if there are no questions from anybody.
John, real quick, I'm sorry.
Please. Oh, go ahead.
I forgot to ask earlier, but I was curious if the county has any revisions to development requirements or ordinances or zoning or anything related to the fire risks, as far as maybe how we're going to structure ongoing utility lines, installation of them. I know that some counties are being very active in that regard, and how new builds are going to be, I guess, for lack of a better word, adjoining the existing lines to reduce the fire risk going forward. I didn't know if our county had taken some steps in that direction.
I know that in response to Grizzly, that there might be an opportunity there, but in terms of other projects, John, if you have some feedback.
Yeah, we are definitely taking a look at that. And I think you probably recognize, Brooke, that the CEQA actually has a new element that's related to fire resiliency. And that's come up in any number of discussions that our Planning Commission has had for projects that have been proposed in more rural areas. Is this an appropriate place to build this kind of construction? Is there a fire station within 5 miles? Are there going to be fire hydrants installed? So they're starting to ask a lot of those number of questions that go beyond what's in CEQA to really look at the suitability of a given site, given our experience with Caldor and other things. So yeah, there is a very active review process going on in the planning department and other departments, including the planning commission, to look at those kinds of factors and try to weigh the pluses and minuses. One of the things that came up recently in the Board of Supervisors discussion was ADUs, and ADUs in particular as they relate to the Myers specific plan. I shouldn't say specific plan, community plan. And in that, they're allowing as little as 4-foot setbacks for ADUs in the Myers area. The Myers community approved that. There was a lot of questions and a lot of discussion. Is that appropriate given our fire situation to only have a 4-foot setback? So that is in the mix of discussions. That was approved by the board, but it doesn't mean it can't be revised if we determine that that's totally unrealistic to have that kind of a minimal setback. But as you may know, the new SB 9, SB 10 type of things that have happened with the state are encouraging more construction within a given parcel. ADUs are part of that, but I'm sure there's going to be some evaluation that has to be done on what is an appropriate setback, realizing we already have defensible space criteria that comes from CAL FIRE. So the answer is yes, it's in review and there's been some active dialogue on it. And let's Karen would like to add to that.
I guess too, I know some counties and officials are looking at above versus underground lines and how we're going to work with PG&E going forward on that front. And I was just curious for new development purposes, and I get it with the setbacks, it goes hand in hand with the utility easement too, what the county wants to do. So
all significantly sized new developments have basically a prescriptive requirement to go with underground utilities. It's those infill projects, and particularly the size of them and stuff. When somebody's talking about building 4 units, you know, on a given parcel they own and stuff, that's the kind of thing you really can't require. But we've been working a lot with PG&E on the need for more funding to do more undergrounding of utilities, as evidenced up in Pollock Pines with their power outages, where they've had, some people were 9 days without electrical power, 9 or 10 days. And that's a real stress when you've got all that cold weather and no ability to get out of your residence because you're snowbound and the roads haven't been plowed and all kinds of things. You know, basically electricity's gone. So how do you stay warm and all those kinds? So you're using the propane, right? And the propane tank goes empty. So what do you do? So the resiliency of being able to maintain that power in those kind of critical situations is important. With respect to Caldor and the affected area Grizzly Flat, that's one of the first things we started asking is PG&E going to prioritize undergrounding of utilities, knowing that's a high hazard area? And their answer is, well, there's only so much money to go around, but we're looking at it. So
yeah, probably not a lot more after the latest determination for the Dixie Fire, but okay. Yes.
I know that we had shared internally among APAC board members that in Lake County, you know, they have a project that it's $1 billion resort that was sued, and the Attorney General of California was part of that lawsuit, essentially saying the state doesn't see it making sense to build out into rural regions, even that interface line between urban. And so, you know, whoever's in office at the time is how much support you get, I guess, at the Attorney General level. But yeah, they did sue, and the judge did find for the Attorney General and for the other the members of that suit. So the solution is that they'll come back and revise something until it can be approved and the judge will sign off on it. So, but yeah, I expect more of that going forward, especially as we're talking about the rural regions and how we build into them. And, you know, it's probably too late for us, but as we build new stuff, it's probably an opportunity to be corrective. I know that, you know, my subdivision's like 95, yeah, so 26, 27 years old, everything's underground there, except for where it comes into the neighborhood. So, all right, so if there are no other questions, let's adjourn this and everybody can go home. Thank you for everyone showing up, for being online. Recording will be available probably in a day on the website. So thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Good night now.